Alright guys, there's the head, the driver's side from the machine shop. They looks like they did a nice job cleaning everything, steam cleaned. Look at the new exhaust valve guides there. You should all be sticking out the same amount. Here are the old guides. You can see this is our culprit. That's how far it was extended out. Right there, you see all the oil on there and stuff, gunked up, rust. All the other ones, these are all the exhaust guides from both heads. All the other ones look like they were, you know, in the right place. So this is the only reason we have to go to the machine shop here. And they also said they did flatten the mating surface here, and the machinist said that it was more than 4 thousandths out of flat. He said that there are low spots near the exhaust valves, you know, right here. So you have to take off, I think, 6 thousandths of an inch to get them flat. So, yeah, I guess good thing we did that. Now we have to reassemble this baby. So we'll put the camshaft on there, lube everything up with oil, and proceed as per manufacturer's instructions. Alright, so this is probably the most delicate and, you know, procedure where you have to be really careful with sealing and cleanliness. So here's the head, here's the camshaft, here is that plate with the camshaft bearings. So first thing what we have to do is put a bead of sealant on this cam cap. So we have to clean out this groove that goes all the way around. There's still some, you know, old sealant left in here. Just use a little, I don't know, plastic implement, scrape that out. Once I have that done, we'll put the bead of sealant around here, put some oil on these bearing surfaces here, plop the camshaft down, and put this plate on. And then they give you a tightening sequence of the bolts, and they say install the valve rocker assembly. So that actually is a separate procedure right here. That should give you, you know, again, a alphabetical tightening sequence, and those big bolts for the rocker arm assembly actually hold down, you know, these bolt holes right here. So tighten the center down first, and then we'll go around with all these Torx and hex bolts to finish the tightening sequence. So I won't tape all of it, but I'll just clean it off, and, you know, we'll go from there. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is take some oil, just a quart of oil, and I have a little nozzle on there, and we're just going to pour some right on these bearing surfaces. Not too much, you don't want to make a mess, but you want to make sure all those bearing surfaces are nice and lubed up. And we'll put the camshaft down, and we're going to turn it so that film of oil spreads around. So you'll feel the camshaft turn very smoothly. Okay, so that's how we start. Now we have to make our bead of silicone on this plate. So this is the schematic of where to apply this sealant. The areas that you really want to be careful, right there near the oil seals on both sides. You know, right here when we come in, you have to make sure that the sealant also reaches, you know, right to the oil seal, so that won't be a place of potential leakage. Also on this side, you come in here, you see this bolt hole has some sealant left over, but we'll go right around and right to the edges right there. So let's get our Permatex Ultra Gray and go to town. So I'm going to start at this end right here. Go around the outside of that bolt hole, and then just give her the beans, right? I think we're halfway there. Start on this side again. Around this bolt hole. I guess a little too much sealant is better than not enough. Don't want any oil leaks here, because if you want to take this apart without removing the head, it's going to be a pain in the butt. And to the oil seal. Okay. Should be good. Alright. Now we'll just plop this guy on here. Cross your fingers. Straight down. Okay. There's some locating dowels, which should just snap right in. There we go, that's one, that's two. So now we'll install those 4 perimeter bolts, little ones. It says tighten them down temporarily. These 4 guys in here. 5mm hex. You should see your sealant squeeze out around the edges. Make sure that it squeezes into the hole where the camshaft seal is going to go, as well as on this side. So it's looking good. Now let's install the rocker arm assemblies. So here's the intake. And here's the exhaust. Let's see here. Should fall right in. Now let's take our 12mm. Start just lightly tightening these bolts down. Alright. Now the next step is to torque these down, and the torque spec is, let's see here. So these main bolts, it says torque them down to 18.4 foot-pounds. Actually have a torque wrench. Just got this guy at Harbor Freight. It's just a 3/8 inch for lower torques. So just go in sequence. This is A. B, C, D, E, F, G, H. So now let's go through and click them. There's A. The head will want to turn a little bit, so you're going to have to support it with your... There's B. C. D. E. F. G, and last but not least, H. Alright, perfect. Alright, next step. Did that. Tighten the bolts. Install record assembly. Now tighten the Torx bolts through J in alphabetical sequence. So those are the 6 bolts around the perimeter. And we want to go to 13.3 foot-pounds. Okay, let's buzz these down. Alright, back to the torque wrench. Alright, here we go. We start with E, F, G, H, I, J. E. There's F. G. H. I, and last but not least, J. Alright, awesome. Now these other 4 hex bolts. Now these are light torque, only 7.5 foot-pounds, and this torque wrench supposedly goes down to 5. So let's see. K. Let's go here. Man, I don't like that. I'd rather almost torque them by hand, by feel. Small bolts can be very misleading in terms of torquing them down. Definitely don't want to strip any of these out. I'm just going to try one. Okay, they do torque down. There's K. K. L. Okay, good. M. N. I don't know why Subaru made such a weird design with the whole cap here. Usually the camshaft's just held down by a couple, bearing caps. But it is what it is, right? Q and R. Alright, that looks good. Next step, tighten bolts S and T to 7.2 foot-pounds. And these guys right here, they actually have an oil seal washer on them. So see this one right here, the washer's still stuck to the plate, but this one, the washer came off with the bolt. So just keep that in mind. Those are important. So same torque setting on here. That's good. All right. I think. So now, next step is to install the oil seals here and that blank off cap on the end right here. And that's what we have. Here's a cap. Here's an oil seal. So let's do that. So let's first start with this cap here. Get a little engine oil. Put it around the perimeter. And I'm going to use a 35mm deep socket. That seems to fit the cap nicely. So first I'm just going to tap it in with a little plastic hammer like that, and the socket will prevent it from going in too deep, and it'll just seat on its own here. And there you go. Cross your fingers, no oil leaks there. And we'll turn the head around. Do the same with the oil seal. Again, here's the oil seal. Just dip, coat it with engine oil, inside and outside. Make sure there's no crap on your sealing surfaces. Then we'll just slip her on there. There you go. Use our deep well socket again. Gently tap it in. Looks good to me. I don't know if it's supposed to sit flush or just a little bit in, but that's as far as the socket will take it, so I'll call that good. So I think we're all done here. Next thing I want to do is, while we have the head up on the bench here, check the valve clearances. Before we get ahead of ourselves here, let's not forget to re-engage these springs for the variable valve lift system. Again, I'm using I think it's a 5mm. Is it a 5 or a 4? 4 fits on there better. A little extension, and we'll just bring this up and latch it on our little pin right there. Same with this side. You have to push it out, and then it'll just latch itself on there. That's beautiful. Okay, now set your cam to that spot where it's free to turn, where all the valves are closed right now. Then we can check valve clearances. So when adjusting valves, I make a little chart. On the driver's side, we have cylinder 2 and 4, intake and exhaust, and the specifications from all data here. Intake and exhaust, so just write the range, 7 to 9 thousandths for the intake, and 9 to 11 thousandths for the exhaust. And the only tools you'll need is just a 10mm wrench and a screwdriver, and some feeler gauges. So let's do these intakes first on cylinder number 2. Again, make sure your camshaft is in a free spot, for that cylinder. TDC compression, if you will. So let's try to put this feeler gauge in here. And keep in mind, if the valve seats are ground down a little bit, these are all going to be tight. So we get our 10mm wrench, screwdriver. So let's crack these guys loose. And then with a screwdriver you'll put it on the little tappet here. So loosen it up until the feeler gauge slips in. So you see that was more than a quarter turn. Alright. And just tighten it down until it kind of pinches the gauge just a little bit. And then we'll take our 10mm, hold the tappet down with the screwdriver so it doesn't turn, and just snug up this jam nut. Okay, so our feeler gauge should slide in just with a slight drag. And I'm using 0.008. Okay, I can see that right there. 0.008. That's right in the middle of the spec for our clearances. So again, let's take this guy. Go the quarter turn, about 3/8 of a turn. So indeed, you need to do this procedure. You can't just slap her back together because all the valves will be tight, and then you're going to run into problems, end up doing the whole job over again. Tighten the jam nut, make sure the feeler gauge slides in and out nice and easy. Sweet. So the exhaust valves, let's set our feeler gauge to 10 thousandths of an inch. Okay. Again, these are also tight, so loosen up the jam nuts. See that? Put you over here. How about that? So that's a quarter turn, 3/8. Pinch it down a little bit. Tighten her down. Okay. You see there should be a slight drag. Oh, that one's a little tight. So if you got a little overboard, just loosen that jam nut again, back it off, tighten her back down. So the thicker the feeler gauge, actually, just because the feeler gauge bends, it'll give you a false reading. So actually we were correct the first time around. Right there. Come on, little guy. I'd say that's good enough. This guy here, so let's see how much we have to loosen this guy up. Quarter turn 3/8 to slide in. Pinch it just a little bit. And tighten that jam nut down. Okay. Why these feeler gauges get caught up in here? It slides in easy, but it's hard to take out. I don't know, I might be a perfectionist here, but it's easier to sleep at night when you know you did the job right. Okay. There we go, that's a nice drag right there. So I'm going to do the rest, and the other head, and I'll just take care of it off camera, and next step will be to bolt these heads onto the car.